Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warrior Season 3, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Nellie's side of things. It's interesting because obviously Atoy has this conversation with Osam about, right, Lai hasn't picked up the sword since she left Chinatown, and even Atoy's wondering about whether or not she'll ever pick it up again. Understandably, it's like, right, she's got this life with Nellie where things are good, they're able to help so many women, and they're able to kind of build a life not only for themselves, but a life kind of helping others, and it's something she's able to do without having to draw her sword anymore, and especially after the last time she had to draw her sword, like, well, those circumstances led to her almost getting killed. It could have led to Nellie dying, so she's going to have those reservations about going down that route again. It's like, I don't want to jeopardize the life I've built for myself and all the good that's happening. So, which Assam gets it as I write, you have that opportunity, you kind of take that chance, because it's like for the first time she's able to kind of leave all of this behind and kind of focus on her own happiness, because everything she did was for their people before, and now she's able to do that while also kind of focusing on her own happiness. So, but I brought it up last episode. I was like, right, nothing necessarily happened in Sonoma last season. So I was like, most likely there's going to be some bad coming their way this season. And lo and behold, we get it this episode because Nellie is talking to this guy. I think his name is Douglas, which at first I was like, why does that actor look so familiar? And then when he took off the hat and we got a close look, I'm like, isn't that the actor from Superman and Lois? He plays Morgan Edge. I'll leave it at that. And I think it's the same actor if I'm not mistaken. I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. But yeah, he wants to buy up her land, but the reason why he wants to buy it up is because the government's planning on building a railroad through there. Specifically, him and his company are the ones building it, so that's why he's going out of his way, because he's like, hey, I'm trying to help you out, I'm a friend, they're going to sell you, take this land from you on pennies of what it could be worth. I'm going to give you what it's actually worth right now. So it's kind of better to give it to me now. And it's an inconvenience, but you're going to be properly compensated for. But for Nellie, it's like, this land means too much. It's too important. And she's like, I got lawyers that are going to defend it. But that's the problem. You're going up against, for one, the government, and they're not going to back down. You're also going up against Douglas, who came here as a friend, but he also has a vested interest in this because his company's the one building the railroad. Now, he might be like, hey, I am legitimately here to help you. I try to look out for you. But at the end of the day, her stubbornness, her unwillingness to sell is going to interfere with his business. And it's like one thing about sending against the government, that's fine, but that screws over my deal with the government and my compensation and my job. So that's where we're going to have an issue. And so I'll give you time to come around. She's not going to. So all the worries I had and other people had previously about like, oh, something's going to happen in Sonoma. It's like, oh, it's going to happen this season. Like they're going to take this land, and it's probably going to get bloody, and there's going to probably be a lot of casualties because of this. And I think that's probably going to be the irony behind it, that Atoy wanted to put her sword down for Sonoma. She might have to pick her sword up again for Sonoma, and I just don't think this is going to work out well, especially because he took notice. Now, they didn't do anything, they weren't like kissing or anything, but he notices like Atoy and Nellie, that I don't know if that's like whether he's going to try and out her, and then that's going to cause like issues and she's going to have to submit or what, or try to use Atoy as a means to push all of this, because like obviously Atoy had some land, but now that's all in Nellie's name, so that could compromise all of that. Cause I was wondering, like, could it still be in Atoy's name, and if that gets found out, that could be an issue. That still could be something that gets used against Nellie. We'll have to wait and see, but it definitely feels like we got the seed set up for that threat to what's going to happen in Sonoma. So we'll see, but it's like, yeah, when the government wants that, they're going to do whatever they can, because it's like, right, we get to just kind of seize your land all willy-nilly like we want to. Your lawyers can try and fight all they might want, but it's like, it's one thing when it's like a corporation, it's another thing when it's the literal government. Like, it's like, that's a very steep uphill battle. So we'll see how things kind of fare for Atoy and Nellie in that regard. I don't think it's going to end well. So other story elements we have this, the printing press situation hasn't worked out to the Hopway's satisfaction, obviously. And so Assam recommended they go to an outsider for it, and it's the guy who runs the printing shop in town. He doesn't want to do it because it's like, right, I crossed the salt to get away from gangsters. I'm not going to go right back to immediately being in the pocket of gangsters. It's one thing when you have to pay protection and stuff, but directly working for them is a whole other thing. The son's okay with it because it's like, right, we'll clear our debt. Which the daughter's like, fine, I'll do it, but I just won't tell my dad about it. She's the one that put up a front, but it's still like, she doesn't like her brother, who is like, basically, her brother basically, as misogynistic as you possibly be, get back in the kitchen, woman. It's like, Jesus. So, why she decided to do that, like, I guess it's like, it's easier for her because it's like, right, I'm the daughter. I mean, because it's also like, that's the sad hierarchy of a family. Like, the son is always going to, I mean, especially if he's the older son, we don't know if he's the oldest or the youngest, but it's like, he's the son, so the family stuff would go to him traditionally anyway, so her word probably wouldn't matter anyway. That's why her brother felt the need to be like, yo, shut up and get back in the kitchen to essentially make us food. So, maybe that's also why she's doing it, because it's like, well, because if I brought it up my father, if I agreed with my brother, he wouldn't listen. So I'm act like I'm on my father's side, but secretly do this because I'm helping our family, like, clear our debt with the tongs. So, her name is, was it Yan Min? And so she knows all there is to know about the printing. And so by the end of the episode, she has printed some pretty counterfeit stuff. So it's like, which is like, yo, Young Jun's super excited, but you're also like, yeah, but that's going to complicate things in so many capacities, because now the Secret Service is involved, which I didn't know. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. I was just surprised, well, because I actually don't know how old the Secret Service actually is. I looked it up, 1865, which makes sense that Mosley was like, yeah, most people don't know we exist. It's understandable. It's only been something, because it's like, it's 1880 something, right? So it's only been around for like maybe 20-ish years, so it's like understandable. So, because we don't know the full capacity, because obviously what Secret Service does now versus what it did back then, it's kind of interesting that it's like, no, like on the authority of the president, we go out here and handle, I guess they predate the FBI, so they fill that void. I knew that they predated it, but looking into it, the FBI was founded in 1908, so I'm wondering, did as a Secret Service, did they originally serve the same purpose as what the FBI eventually became? Like, oh, we handle federal crimes? Maybe that's what the Secret Service is. Because now, I mean, I don't know what else they do besides protecting the president. I don't know if, well, and I think they protect other, like, officials too. It's not just the president. Their main job is protecting the president. But I guess their capacity, like, changed over the years. So I guess, like I said, it just feels like they hunt down federal crime. So it seems like they were the FBI before the FBI became the FBI. So that's just kind of interesting, if that's kind of what it feels like that's aiming for. But it's kind of put the tongs in, it's put the Hopway in the crosshairs of Mosley. He hasn't directly gotten there, but he's 2 steps away because, well, sadly his partner died at the beginning of the episode. Because I figured the people they were stopping, I was like, are you really Secret Service, or are you BSing? It's like, no, it seems like you really are. Blew off a guy's fingers. We don't know whatever happened to that guy after he gave Mosley the information, but his partner's dead. That guy's partner's dead. And now it's like, oh, you're going to give me the information. He took him to the place where the printing press was, because he followed it all the way here. And yeah, it's already gone because the Hopway got it last episode. But it's like, yeah, he knows that there's a Chinese man that they operated with, but he doesn't know beyond that. So just 1 degree separation. All they need to do is get the Chow, which who Mosley goes to later on. It makes sense. Like, he'll probably be able to get to Chow pretty easily, because there's nothing that goes down in Chinatown, for one, without Chow having his nose in it, which Lee knows that firsthand. And he's been around long enough. He hadn't been around as long as Bill, but he's been around long enough now, 2 seasons worth, to know how things work in Chinatown. And once again, nothing goes by Chinatown without him knowing some part of it. He might not have the entire piece to it, which we know in this case he does. He's directly involved. So, and kind of like, since it's tied in, I'm gonna like circle over to the Lee stuff, because he offers Lee a job at a time where Lee probably couldn't use it. For one, he wants to be away from the cops because of how messed up and corrupted that is, which we'll talk about that later. But then also Lee's circumstances, because, yeah, that bounty didn't disappear. Like, yeah, that guy got shooed away, but I guess other people are just adamant about that bounty, so they are, because that guy was a U.S. Marshal, wasn't he? The guy that came after maybe he wasn't a U.S. Marshal. I don't remember the guy that came after Lee in season 1. So he got scared off by Bill, but I was like, would he really run his mouth to someone else for them to get the bounty? It just has to be like, nah, other people have picked up that trail. If one person can find it, some other people can too. And it's like, oh, we got 2 people who found it this time. They might be partners, but regardless, they found it, which led to Abigail and Lee doing some damage. I mean, Lee having to basically murder that guy with a broken bottle was pretty covered in blood. And what was interesting is we discovered the place is owned by Jack. I was like, Jack? I was like, the only Jack we know is Happy Jack. Well, it turns out that's Abigail is Happy Jack's sister-in-law, which are like, interesting. Well, her husband died, and so Jack is very protective of her because they're lying about like, oh, why are these people here? It's like, yeah, they're here because they tried to rob us. And he's like, well, if they're trying to rob you, you let them rob you, because if this place gets hurt or if this place gets damaged or if she gets hurt, that's all going to be on you, because I don't like you even staying here. In fact, I don't even like you, which I love. Lee's like, maybe you will, maybe I'll grow on you. And Jack does see the bounty for Lee, and I'm curious if he ever finds out the story about why Lee is wanted in the first place. Maybe he'll like put out some fillers to try and find out. But the fact is he didn't act on that this episode makes me wonder, is that just going to be something he's going to pull the trigger on later? Like, he'll probably sell Lee out when it's convenient, but with Mosley helping him now, like, that might be very inconvenient, might not be the time. So, the fact is he didn't pull the trigger on that immediately, because he knows, like, okay, so you're lying to me. In fact, Abigail's lying to me to protect you, so I don't know that you're the reason why they came into one of the businesses I own. So, he probably picked up on the fact this is like, right, you like my sister-in-law, and I know something's going on here, so... Because Lee wanted to leave. It's like, right, we could leave. But it's like, for one, no matter where you go, you're always going to be hunted. Once again, someone's followed you all the way to San Francisco, followed your trail all the way from Georgia to San Francisco. On the completely other side of this country at a time where getting around isn't easy, and they still found you. So that's an issue. But also for Abigail, it's like, yeah, this is a business I own, and I'm going to have the opportunity to make the money I have. But also the time frame being what it is, there's probably going to be there's definitely very, very few places you and Abigail could be together without much issue. So now that Mosley shows up offering, well, what he offers, it's like, not only can I clear up that whole, it's like, oh, none of us are perfect. So it's like, yeah, I can help make that murder thing disappear. And also you get to be with that colored gal you love being with. So Lee's got the motivation, so we'll see. I mean, because he knows, once again, people will keep coming, so this could be the answer he needs to kind of finally live a quiet life. It's just probably not going to go the way he thinks it will, but we'll see. Like I said, he has his connections with Chinatown, which I'm curious if that's going to put him and Bill at odds. Maybe, maybe not. I'm sure Bill's going to be rubbed a little the wrong way, where it's like, hey, so I got your badge and you decided to take another badge instead of getting your original badge back, which maybe that means by the end of this season, Lee will get his OG badge back and start working with the police. Granted, not the best time to be working with them either, because even Bill has issues with the way Atwood is just like busting into people's place, being like, oh, look at the squalor they live in, which I'm almost like, how could they live in such a place? It's like, yes, because they have very little in this country. Even someone like Bill doesn't live in like the most fancy of places, but so many people have to live together in these kind of like rundown places. They have to make ends meet because they don't make much. They have this section of this town, like for you to bust into them and like judge them, you're beating up. It's like, oh, this guy, he was kind of threatening us. He's like, yes, the guy was waving a spatula in your face, and it's like, yeah, beat him up. And it's telling Bill to like know his place. Even later on, it's like, hey, if you want to, I could get you a job at the Pinkertons, or you can basically fall in line. Once again, it shows how much of an asshole you are when Bill, one of the biggest assholes in the show, which Bill's progressed a little here and there. It does seem like he's in a better path and a better person now after everything, but it still doesn't change the fact is Bill's an asshole too. So the fact is, one of the show's biggest assholes is like, yo, you're so much of an asshole. That speaks volumes about you. which I did love Atwood like flexing his power and stuff. And then Mosley came in and was like, no, I'm going to tell you how it is. It's going to be this type of meeting. I actually don't need your permission. I actually already took one of your jail cells and stuff like that. If need be, I'll take this damn office if I have to, because I have the power because of what the president has given me. So I outrank you. So when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. I don't need your permission. This was just me like trying to be courteous and like, you know, trying to have a civil conversation with you. But if we got to, I will pull rank and I will put you in your goddamn place. And it's like, you kind of felt good because you're like, yeah, just when Atwood was just flexing, being like, blah, to Bill, you know, it's like, oh, I know you didn't want me to take your job, and for you to kind of be belittled like that, you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm curious how much of an effect that's going to have on Buckley's mayorship run. This episode makes me, it kind of pieces something together that I've been wondering for a while. Well, because when Buckley was doing his thing with, you know, prostitutes, once again, I thought maybe some jilted love that was gone and now he's compensating with it with being with, like, prostitutes. Now also, like, his weird thing about, like, right, for whatever reason, it's like, was he so scared of Leary, like, was it last season that he ended up throwing up? I'm like, what is that all about? Now, when he was surrounded by that crowd and he was freaking out and panicking, I was like, wait, are you a germaphobe now? And I was like, it's got to be some traumatic connection to, like, losing his leg. So that created some, like, trauma in his head, and maybe he's, like, afraid of germs and infections because he's like, right, because of an infection, I ended up having to lose my leg, and maybe that's created some trauma in his head. So he's kind of, like, when it's just, like, close. Because he's always kind of been like, disgusted when people touch him, and he's just kind of cleaning himself off. Now it makes sense more about the Buckley too, because about Leary like getting all close and personal to him. Why he threw at the time, I was like, did someone poison him? It's like, no, it seems like he just probably, maybe it's a combination of things. Like it might be a claustrophobia thing, and maybe just like, I was like about to say, I don't think it's an agoraphobia thing, because he just goes out and about fine, it's just being around people. So I think it is like a germophobia thing. Like he's very like about it, like that sends him over the edge. That woman he met this episode, what was her name, Miss Archer? I'm like, okay. I was like, I see what time that is. I think she's going to end up being his fake wife. They're going to put on a stunt of like, oh, this is a person I'm dating. Because the moment the other candidate, Thaler, was like, oh, here's my wife. I was like, here's my wife and our children. I was like, for one, that's the symbolism of the American family. You know, white picket fence, the all-American dream. You're kind of living that. So it's like, of course, they're going to gravitate towards you. Because that's something you see in like political shows from time to time. They'll always kind of be like, hey, you need to present as a, like, you being single does not resonate well with like political figure. People got to see themselves in you, and it's like, oh, this person's a family person. That means they've got good values. That's not really applicable, but you know, it's a perception thing. I mean, that's politics for you. It's all about perception. So in this regard, it's like he presents as like the good, honest American family man. And who is Buckley? He's single, which people don't know. Once again, he's got his Confederate secret, but he has also got the prostitute thing, which I'm like, I guess he was hooking up with the prostitutes, but he would clean them thoroughly first because of his germophobia and then have sex with them. So, but I think Miss Archer is going to be his pseudo wife. It's like, hey, I'm going to be your wife, and that way you seem like, oh, an honest married man, because you being single is going to probably hurt you in the long run. So I figure that's the role she's going to play. We'll see, but it felt like the moment she was introduced and like the way she was introducing herself to Buckley made me go like, yeah, she's going to help him like with his political power. So, because there's a whole conversation that, because Buckley now kind of has his own Buckley, but he doesn't seem as scummy as Buckley, but he does seem like he's scummy. Like, oh, I'm gonna be the person that kind of does what I need to do, because he, you know, Buckley was pretty clear about like, hey, I'm spending all this money that because he's gotten a lot of the estate from from Mayor Blake, which I would have thought that went to Sophie, but I guess not, because with Penelope out of the picture, it's like it would have probably all gone to her, but maybe a good chunk of it went to him, but even more so of it comes to her now, because it's like maybe Sophie's not in a position to claim any of that because she was family, but at least Penelope was married to him. But now it's like, I'm the mayor, so I get to snatch all that up because she's out of the picture. So it's like, it's still hers, but I'm taking it because no one's going to notice because she's ill. So I have kind of power of attorney over all of that. So And even the guy was like, yeah, hopefully she doesn't recover. And he's like, well, she won't. It's like, well, that's good. So it shows like, yeah, he's not, I don't think he's going to be as scummy as Buckley, but he's still scummy. So don't get that twisted. So then we also have the Leary situation, which even he has to kind of put his own people in line because they were causing trouble for Merriweather, because it's like, right, you have the Irish and the Chinese working side by side, and it's like the Irish are not having that. You know, they hold a lot of resentment. It's like, yeah, we got these jobs, but there's still Chinese labor here, and you're the reason why I personally went so long without a job, and now other people still don't have jobs. I might have the job, but other people don't because of you. So led to some animosity, which is causing Merriweather some money, which Larry trying to placate everyone, trying to placate the industrialists, trying to placate the Irish and the workers. So he puts them in their place and it's like, yo, get out of here. You don't want the job? Someone else will take it. Anyone else got a problem? You could walk, and there are plenty of other people out here who need these jobs. So if you don't want them, cool. And if you got a problem, you want the smoke, you know exactly where to find me. And so Home Dude and his brother are like idiots, decided to challenge Leary, which even Bill was like, you silly idiots. Why'd you even do that? You had to go and run your fucking mouth. But because they were like, oh, like ever since, you know, Assam beat your ass in the season 2 finale, like, but I was like, has Leary lost his edge? Which we saw he took a blow to the chest exactly where Assam hit him last season. And so that hasn't fully recovered. Once again, it hasn't been that long. Once again, it's been weeks, maybe months since then. But it seems like that's going to be his downfall this season. He's still got to present like he's strong and he can whoop anyone's ass, which he went to work. I mean, hell, he like took some blows to the back of the head, turned around, took down the other guys. Like, cool, get your shit together, like clean yourselves up. The next rounds are on me, you know? So it's like, I'll beat your ass, but hey, I put you in your place. We're good now. We're Gucci. Now never step up to me again, kid. But he has to hold his chest afterwards because it's like Assam left some lasting damage. So Leary ain't for one, it's like his confidence has been cracked a little because of the fight, but he's also like suffered some damage that he's not aware of. So that's interesting. Especially for him, it's like, right, I do so much. These people have no idea how much I sacrifice for them, and they've got the audacity to sit here and complain when I'm doing so much for them, or I've continued to do so much for them. I've always looked out for them. I've done everything I can, and they've got the audacity to complain. That's why he was just done with it. So, because Leary's also in that position where now he's being his services are being offered to other people, because it's like, right, I'm the fixer. I think that's probably going to end up being Leary's position. Like, it's like, right, it's like, oh, you think I'm here to placate other people? Because it's like, hey, these people, like, they're still, like, I'm a steel manufacturer. I'm a manufacturer, and I need, like, steel. No, the guy is using steel to build stuff, and the manufacturers, like, some other business partner, some business guy is, like, overpaying and using his big influence to, you know, cut anyone else out from getting any steel. And it's like, right, I need you to kind of make this guy fall in line, make this manufacturer keep the playing field fair. But it's like, I'm not going to, like, is that how you and your other rich folks see me? He's like, I'm not going to be like the person you can just like bark orders to. But it's like, it's part of the game. So I don't know if Leary's going to fall into that category, whether he will just be like the brute and the muscle, because that's how they do see him. And he even talks to Buckley, and Buckley's like, you are a politician, which I even love him saying to Buckley, hey, you fuck me on this, then, and just stops. But it's like, you know what time it is. You do see those moments where like Buckley's confidence and his mask do crack, because he's like, right, there's not so much I can do. I'm still acting mayor, but once I become fully mayor, then, you know, I have to win this election. You know, I have to, you know, be officially certified as the actual mayor. So we'll see how things kind of go between him and, was it Thayer? I think I called him Fowler like earlier, but it's Thayer. Thayer. I keep saying Thayer. I think it's Thayer, if I'm not mistaken. The other mayor candidate. So Buckley's got to do all that while also ensuring that he's doing everything for Mai Ling, once again, within reason. Because if that blackmail overextends him, he's just going to, you know, cause all kinds of havoc, which Mai Ling doesn't want that smoke. Which, speaking of Mai Ling, she talks to Kung Pak about how they should handle the Hop Way, which is like, right, Kung Pak's perspective is let them bleed themselves out. It's almost kind of like basically what Father June wanted to do last season, but young June couldn't wait. It's just kind of like, let's wait them out. They'll make a mistake. In this case, it's like, right, wait them out. They'll bleed themselves dry because young June isn't as good as leader as his father. And the fact is that they're suffering right now. Granted, they don't know about the printing press situation, which once again is going to turn into a larger issue for Chinatown. But because of that, it's like, right, let's lead them to their own devices. But the problem is you don't cut off the head of the snake when you have the opportunity. It's going to strike. You're going to let it build up strength, and that's going to be an issue. Like I said, they've also got the Secret Service about to start breathing down their neck. It's already started, but it hasn't really kicked in until Lee officially takes the job and kind of leaves Mosley there. But it's like, that's on the horizon, essentially. So we'll see how that plays out. But another one of the Tongs, the three brothers, it's like she wants them to fall in line. In fact, they were one of the last ones not falling in line to the Long Z. So she's like, okay. So it seems like they might be the last one. She's like, yeah, they're one of the last ones. So I don't know if there's any more Tongs or whether, so at the bare minimum, it seems like there were at least 6 Tongs. We had the Feng Hai, we had the Hopway, we had the Long Z. We had the, Jingzhou, Kong Pak's group. There was the ones that got wiped out last season by Xing, and now the three brothers. So I don't know if there's any more out there. But Li Yong isn't really much of a fan of their leader, Mu Qian, because it's like, yeah, the Long Z are honorable, and not everyone is kind of like that. It's like, yeah, but he'll fall in line under your leadership. It's like, yeah, Xing sure as hell didn't. He stayed exactly the same, and you saw how much of a problem that was. Which you could tell Mai Ling was kind of irritated by that. It's like, for one, you did what you did on your own, so thanks for reminding me about that headache. But also, he was a means to an end, and yes, I recognize the mistake, but you still made a mistake handling things your way. Once again, Xing's that nightmare that's still out there that could always pop up in. It's definitely going to pop up in the worst time frame, I'm sure. But they went to go see Mu Qian and the three brothers, and they proceeded to try and kill Li Yong. Luckily, Kong Pak was there, and they both. Once again, Li Yong is kind of like a Sam when he fights. He doesn't fight to necessarily kill unless necessary. It's like he fights to wound and break arms. But like, Kong Pak was there like, nah, I'm gutting these motherfuckers. And then it's like, it came down to the leader. It's like, right, tell them to fall in line. He's like, I get it, but the only way forward is following the Long Z. But Mu Qian's like, yo, she's got you by the balls. She's never going to have me by the balls. Which Kong Pak's like, I understand. Kills him, but there is that thing of I will fall in line, but he's not doing it from Mai Ling. He's doing it out of respect for the Long Z, but also more so than anything, his brother in arms. Like, he trusts Li Yong. It's not Mai Ling he fully trusts. He gives his servitude, but his trust lies solely with Li Yong. So, once again, that's probably going to turn into a little bit of an issue later on, but we'll see. Especially because Mai Ling, as I brought up last episode, and we get it even more this episode, her joining the quote-unquote Duck Society a lot more. It's like, once again, you're playing this role because, hey, it's going to further our reach and our businesses. But I brought it up last episode that the Long Z, as well as someone like Kong Pak, who already doesn't like you, and Li Yong, who has his back and forth with Mai Ling, which he cares deeply for her. But once again, how much is going to be for your sake, and how much is that going to be at the cost of the Long Z, where she's ingratiating herself and amongst the white people. It is that thing of you're being ingratiated amongst a group that has been doing nothing but beat us down and continues to beat us down and harass us and look down on us like we don't belong here and that we're subpar. So for you to ingratiate yourself amongst them, for her, it's a means to an end. But I'm sure that's especially because they treat you like a doll, like you're something like you're like something you see in the zoo where it's almost like, oh my God, look at this. Oh my God, look at this oh, I've never met a Chinese woman who can speak English. Like, she's like a show to him. That it's like, oh, all the people gathered around. Like, the fact is, she has to tell her story over again in front of other people. And the lady that brought her in is almost like, oh, isn't it interesting? And it's like, oh, do you have any dresses in your culture of this magnitude? Which I like. I don't, especially in this time frame, you'd assume there'd be more traditional stuff. But I'd assume like, very traditional Chinese wear would be in that same vein. But, you know, coming from her circumstances, you know, she probably never had anything fancy like that. I don't know. And especially considering, like, Chinatown, like, I mean, there are people like her and Atoy who do have, like, the drip, but I guess nothing more like there's a lot of, like, great clothing that specifically Atoy and Mai Ling have worn, but I don't know if it'd be in the same level as like the more prestigious uppity dresses that like everyone else, the white women are wearing. So she gives her one and it's like, oh, you can have, oh, you never know what an evening dress could, you know, what role it could serve. But I'm like, it feels like she's playing dress up. Like it's effed up, but it feels, I mean, she could have the best of intentions of like, hey, I do want to help you out, but it feels like you're kind of her plaything. It just rubs me that way, and we'll see whether or not, you know, I'm curious if anyone else gets those vibes, and I'm also curious if anyone else, if the show eventually kind of gets to that or not, or whether it's just, I mean, once again, I had my reservations about Nelly, and I was completely wrong about her. It's like, turns out Nelly's a pretty dope person and a really good person. You know, like I said, because the way she came at Atoy rubbed me the wrong way, and she always had good intentions, but I corrected it the next episode, being like, after I was like very about Nelly, I was like, no, maybe I came at her with a little too much spice. So I'm going to give this woman the benefit of the doubt, but it's just like I said, it just rubs me the wrong way. It just feels like she's playing dress up with Mai Ling. Once again, you're kind of like this oddity to be like admired and look at, and oh, look at me, look what I brought to our prim and proper society. I brought us a prim and proper Chinese woman, and was like, oh my god, they're so, like, you know, it almost feels like it's this backhand compliment almost, where it feels like that's what this whole thing is. But once again, we'll have to wait to see how that breaks down and how that plays out going forward. And then finally, another story thread we have is Bill's circumstances. I touched on it a little bit more this episode with him and Lucy. She's not willing to come home because the circumstances haven't changed. It was supposed to be his job, but Buckley kind of screwed that all up. Now his brother-in-law was offering him a job. It's like, you come work for me. And it's more so that's Lucy's decision, because it's like, right, it'll be a job where you doesn't have to be as dangerous. I mean, I'm sure Pinkerton's job, especially in this time frame, would have still been just as dangerous. So even Atwood offering him that job, I mean, granted, I don't know if it's going to be a thing of, will Bill get the opportunity to work for Secret Service? But that's also going to be like, well, that's a very fatal job too. So his wife wouldn't be too keen on it. But I'm sure for Bill, it's like, yeah, you know, once again, he at least could feel better about their work, because it's like, we are doing good. At least we were keeping the peace. That's what we were mainly doing, so things don't fall out like they did in the season 2 finale. But Atwood's not making that easier. And it's like, once again, you beat people down, and eventually they had enough, and they will fight back. Once again, we don't know what Atwood's circumstances were in his Chinatown in New York. I brought it up last episode, like, did your Chinatown have the Tong? And even they didn't have the Long Z, and they didn't have the Hop Way. And with everything that's bubbling beneath the surface of Chinatown, and with all this stuff that's coming up now because of the printing press and the counterfeit money, what that could easily turn into. So ultimately, we'll have to wait to see how that plays out for Bill, what choices he ends up making. Whether he ends up being able to snatch all this back from Atwood at the end, whether he kind of walks away like his wife wants him to, or things between him and Lee stand. Now that, like I said, Lee's most likely going to take that. Probably not most likely, most definitely is going to end up taking that job with Mosley. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.